My son was 6 days old, and the house we lived in was where the Chemmart pharmacy is now. And there was a brick, it was a hay and corn store. It was called Poultryman Farmers, if I remember. And we lived in the brick house beside it. It was a very substantial, quite comfortable house with very little backyard, because the back of it was taken over with the hay and corn store. And then beside that was M's Motors. I think it was a Ford franchise, I'm not sure. And my ex-husband was the used car salesman or manager there. And we lived there. My eldest daughter was at school at Davy Street at that time. She was just in, I think, probably grade 1, so it's a long time ago. But they were happy days. My daughter, I know, had started school at Notting Hill, which was it was just like a little country school. And now, of course, Monash University's built up. And the first day I walked her up to the Davy Street school, holding her hand. As we got closer to the school, this noise started to well up, and it got louder and louder, of course. And the poor little child was terrified. From what was virtually a country school to come to Davy Street was a big thing, but it was a nice school. We moved soon after that to a house in Nolan Street. My uncle, who had come to Frankston in 1929, he owned a house in number 8, I think, Davy Street. What did I say? Nolan Street, where now where there are flats, but there used to be the Ben Lynn nursing home. And that was good fun. That was a great big house, but very old, to the point that one night we were laying in bed, my ex-husband and I, and the bed went through the floor, which was quite good fun. But in those days, everything was much simpler. We used to come down here as children. My parents used to drive us down, and my uncle would have obtained for us from one of his friends a house that we could rent over the school holidays. And the one that we loved best was in Carr Street, just up the corner from High Street, so that we were close to the all the activities that went on in the football over. And also, in the really early days, because the fire brigade was all volunteers, of course, and there were no ways of communicating with people other than the siren. And so on a summer's night, we'd very often hear the siren wailing away. And I know my siblings and I, we have very clear memories of hearing these footsteps pelting up the street. Because the men, many of them didn't have cars, and they were volunteers, and they'd be racing up to get to the fire brigade, which was up where the civic centre is. And they would go in there, they'd go there, and off they'd go to fight the fires. And we would have been here in the 39 fires, but it was our very favourite holiday place, and it was great for the family. My uncle, who came here in 1929, he had a menswear, Edie's Menswear. I think it was 487 Bay Street, Frankston, which is now Nepean Highway. It was it was a workman's clothing business, nothing flash, but all good quality stuff. He was a very philanthropic man, and if anyone needed to get their kids to school in a uniform and they didn't have the money, they would just go to school with their new uniforms on, and they would pay whenever they could. I've met many people since who'd had big families who could remember the street years getting their kids to school in their uniforms, and there was never any word about payment. I think it wasn't always paid, but he wouldn't have cared. He used to sing beautifully. He used to, because any production or concert was at the old Mechanics Institute Hall, which was pretty chatty even then. But that's where you went. And he used to sing in the Gilbert and Sullivan productions, and I can remember him being the Lord Chief Executioner one time and looking absolutely magnificent. But all good fun stuff. We used to attend, when we lived here, we attended the Presbyterian Church when it was next to, at the back of the old post office, just up the way. And then we were very involved with the new building in High Street, and we were regular attenders there. My children all did, and they all went to school here. Jenny started at Davy Street, and then we moved up to Helvetia Court, off Overport Road, and they went to the Overport State School, which was lovely, and then to Frankston High. But see, we moved up there when it was all just bush at the back, and there were wallabies and all things in the back there. And my kids used to play in there unrestricted, unrestrained, and build huts and tree houses and all sorts of stuff, and we never ever thought that they were in any sort of danger. There were probably snakes, or I think any self-respecting snake would have gotten out of the way of all the noise they made. But it was a lovely place to live. The little court that we lived in Helvetia Court, there were about 50 children in the court, and they used to have such a good time. The blocks were big, and we had plenty of room in the backyard, and school holidays were great fun. They'd sort of prepare concerts, and I don't know whether they were ever actually performed. I think the preparation took all the time, and making the rules and all this sort of stuff. It was, the kids were in Scouts. My ex-husband was a Rover Scout leader for many, many years. They were in Scouts and Guides, Brownies, and there were the church clubs they were into. I seemed to be driving somebody somewhere all the time. I had 4 youngsters. But very happy days, Frankston. And I've chosen to stay in my great age. I've chosen to stay in Frankston. Just love it. Love it as a place to live. It's a lovely freedom about it that I like. Just simply because you look out and you see that open space of the sea. It's just so beautiful. And to drive down Oliver's Hill, where else would you have such a beautiful view? It's just so lovely. And I think too, in Frankston, you've only got an hour to Melbourne, an hour to the Dandenongs, an hour down the end of the peninsula. It's just so accessible, so many nice places.